Okay, the next concept we're going to look at in assembly language is coding a loop. Okay, so let's do the really simplest of a sort of a loop in Raptor. We're just going to say a loop round and get some input, and if the input is equal to 1, we're going to quit. Okay, so I'm going to say something like here, type 1 to quit, any other number to go again. Something like that. Oh, we need to enter a variable. So this is our input value. We're going to call that R0. Okay, so we're going to input R0, and in here we're going to say if R0 is equal to, what did we say? We're going to 1 to quit. So if R0 is equal to 1, then we're going to come out and finish. Otherwise, we're going to keep going round. Okay, type of 1 to quit. So let's just run that and just check to see how that works. And it says type of 1 to quit any number. So if I type a 9, it's going to go around, ask again. A 4, go around, ask again. A 1, it's going to quit and go out. Okay, it's really, really simple. So what are we going to do with this? Well, quite clearly, we're going to have some sort of looping mechanism. So how do we do loops? Well, if we go back to our info here and look to see how we do loops, well, loops are actually done with labels. They're called labels. And as well as a label, we're going to be interested in doing branches, okay? Because we can think of a decision here as saying if a certain condition is true, then we're going to branch out away from the loop and go somewhere else in the program. And in this case, we're just going to end. If not, we're going to branch somewhere else and do something else. Okay, so we're going to set up this looping mechanism with a label, and we're going to get some information inside that loop, check to see whether or not we need to end the loop, and if we do, we come out. If not, we're going to go around again. Okay, so let's try that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up this thing called loop. Now I could call it anything I like, but I've got a loop in here. And at the start of the loop, I'm going to input this value into R0. So we're going to input into R0 from the keyboard, which is 2 like that. Okay, so that is basically the equivalent of this loop plus this. And now I want to do this decision, or this sort of determination whether or not I should come out the loop or not. Okay, and how do I do that? Well, I want to do a comparison. I want to make sure that I can compare whatever was typed, which is stored inside this register R0, and I wanted to compare it with this value 1. Okay, so if I just get up one note a minute, one note, and basically I'm just going to draw in, create a little new section called scratch add, which I'm just putting random stuff in here. So I want to see whether or not R0 is equal to 1. Okay, that's our condition. Let's go back to our help on this, and we're basically looking at this conditional branch. Okay, so let's have a look. It's the keyword B followed by a condition followed by a label. Okay, so we're going to branch according to this condition, and if this condition is true, we're going to head off to this label. Okay. And in order to do this, we're going to do a comparison statement. So we're going to use a comparison statement, which is here, CMP, compare, and then depending on the result of that, we're going to then do a branch. Okay, so the first thing we're going to need is to do a comparison. And what comparisons can we do? Well, if you look at the conditions that we've got here, the values for the condition down here, is we can either say they're equal, not equal, greater than, or less than. Okay, so let's have a look. Let's see what we can, see what we can do with that. Where did it disappeared. Yes, here we go. So let's have a think about our comparison first. Well, what do we want to compare? We want to compare whatever it is that we stored in R0 with this operand, which is equal to 1. So let's do that. Let's go back to our assembly code. And we want to do a comparison. CMP, or type it in capitals if you want. You don't have to. It'll do that for you afterwards. We want to compare whatever is in R0 with the number 1. Remember, that's the number 1. And remember, actually, you think this is hashtag 1, hash 1. And, it's all to do with Twitter, right? Hashtags and all that sort of thing. Well, no, actually, this is a number. This stands for number. Okay, that's what it really stands for. All right. So if we basically, this is saying, let's compare the value in R0 and see whether it's equal to 1. Okay, and if we're going to say if they're equal, so we're going to branch equal. And notice, go back to our help file. We're going to say branch equal. Okay, so B EQ, and if we are, we're going to branch to a quit. So we're going to come back here, go back to our raptor diagram. If they are equal to 1, we're going to quit because we're comparing R0 against 1, and if they are equal, then we're going to quit. Okay. And quit is another label. So in here we've got this label called quit, and if we do that, we're going to halt. Okay. Now what happens if this is not true? Well, at the moment it's just going to fall down into this quit, which is no good. We don't want to sort of type in a 9, compares to see whether R0, which has got a 9 in it, is equal to 1. It says if they are equal, it quits. Well, what does it do otherwise? Well, what it should do otherwise is branch unconditionally back up to loop. Okay, so it's going to set up our loop, which is this piece here. We're going to input our value into R0. We're going to compare that to equal to 1. If it is, we're going to quit. In other words, come down to this bit of code, which halts. If not, it's going to branch unconditionally, which is this line here, back up to loop. Okay, so let's see whether that works. Okay, so we're going to run. Asks for an input. Obviously, it's not saying type a 1, so let's type something that isn't a 1. 8. It's going to come up, and it's going to go back up to our program and ask us again eventually. I will explain all this moving around later on when we start looking at something called the fetch, decode, execute cycle. There we go, asking us again. Type in a 4. Type in a 4, and it's going to ask us to input again. All sorts of things going on, and then it's going, now I type my 1, and this time it should halt. Here we go, just keep waiting here, it's going to halt. There we go. So that program there is the same as this one. Loop, the quitting, the branch loop is this line going back up to here. The branch, the comparison is this thing inside the diamond. And what to do with the comparison, because we're comparing R0 with number 1. We're not saying equal though. This is where we get this. So the equal sign here is determine whether they're the same. That is the branch equal. Okay? Hopefully that gets you an understanding of how we would do a simple loop in assembly.